Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Peter Mackenzie, and I am a descendant and elder from the La Perouse Aboriginal community. On behalf of the La Perouse community members and elders who currently occupy this part of the Sydney coast, and in memory of the long-gone Kari and Maruora Dial people, whose traditional country this was, I most warmly welcome you here today. The welcome to country is our contemporary interpretation of receiving and giving permission to new friends who visit areas within our traditional lands, or as we call it, country. It is a ceremony recognising the cultural and spiritual connection to country and an opportunity to reaffirm the ongoing relationship to our land. We wish Griffin Theatre Company every success for the future in presenting the ongoing performances and presentations representing Australian life and contemporary culture as we know it today. So again, we welcome you. On behalf of the elders and the members of the La Perouse Local Aboriginal Land Council, we thank you.
Hi, I'm Declan Greene. I'm the Artistic Director of Griffin Theatre Company, and we are here at the end of 2020, and probably the nicest thing we can say about this year at this point is that it happened. It happened. It is continuing to happen. But if you are watching this right now, it's because you're interested in what happens next at Griffin. You're watching it because you're interested in theatre and the community around it, and in art and in imagination after a year when a lot of those things have felt maybe slightly endangered. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being curious and being hopeful about theatre in Australia. And we're really excited to show you what we've got planned for you. So without further ado, the first show of our main season is Green Park by Elias, Jameson, Brown. So even though these are all new Australian plays, our 2021 season takes you on a bit of a journey across the world. But it feels appropriate that we begin right here in Darlinghurst with Green Park. Green Park is a real park just down the road from the SBW stables, and in Elias's play, two men meet there for an illicit grinder hookup. One is 19 years old, one is in his 50s, but over the course of the evening, as the sun begins to set, more than just an age gap begins to drive a wedge between the two of them. In a bit of a first for Griffin, Green Park will be staged in the actual Green Park with the actors wearing hidden microphones and the audience on wireless headsets.
I started writing Green Park because I was having these kind of profound moments with strangers in my sexual experiences on Grindr. And I thought there is something so unique about the way this kind of virtual sex sauna operates in a way. Green Park was the site of the first AIDS memorial rally, and it's also the site of this really popular gay beat in the 80s, but the toilets were knocked down. I guess beneath the architecture of the play, I'm looking at generational trauma and like minority trauma between queer folk, basically. And I think it comes from this place of participating in underbelly sexual politics within gay culture and like realizing that we have this residue trauma from the AIDS movement and from when it was illegal to be queer. I think the play is charming, and I think it's a little bit dangerous because it's outdoors, and I think it's really naughty. So charming, dangerous and naughty.
We then move from Gadigal to Gunaikurnai country, from inner city Darlinghurst to the Victorian Alpines for the second show of our main season, Dogged by Andrea James and Catherine Ryan. Dogged is kind of a game of cat and mouse, or rather kind of a game of dog and dingo. It's about a kind of face-off or a confrontation between two animals. One of them is an introduced species, the daughter of a farming family. The other is a native canine, a dingo, and the work follows the two of them as they stalk one another on territory that they both recognise as their own through the mud and the rain and eventually the blood.
The starting point for me was hearing about bounties that the Victorian state government had put on wild dogs. The more I thought about it and started looking into that idea of wild dogs, there's a whole lot of complexity and paradox about who a wild dog is and who a dingo is, and different people, for their own reasons, will classify animals as wild dogs or dingoes, and what the relationship between those animals are. So there's a lot of paradox and complexity about humans' relationships to animals when in the land that they're both kind of making their homes. And that was really fascinating for me.
For her, it was really important that this part of the story was able to be told. And Kath was struggling with how to tell that, you know, as a non-Aboriginal person. When we travelled onto Gunai country, it's my grandmother's country, that was a really important thing to do. And realising, you know, that dingoes have a 5,000-year-old relationship with Gunai people. And I think there's something that's just so fragile right now about that relationship with both Black and white Australians.
We blur a lot of boundaries in the storytelling. There's funny bits. It's humorous, but it's also quite horrific. There's big life and death questions.
I hope that everyone who comes to see the play, you know, will consider their own connection and relationship to the land, you know, and the country that they live and work on, and to also continue to think about their relationship with First Nations people, if they have one, how that can develop further, and if they haven't, how they might begin that, you know, both with meeting us, you know, as people, but also their relationship with the country.
It's a work of extraordinary violence, but it's tempered by remarkable poetry, and I feel incredibly lucky and privileged to get to work with Andrea and Kath and direct this one. The third work in our season is another struggle for territory, but this time it's a philosophical struggle about who gets to define contemporary feminism in Kendall Fever's Wherever She Wanders. Wherever She Wanders was one of the highlights of our 2020 season, marking the return of the formidable Kendall Fever to the SBW Stables Theatre after the success of her play, The Almighty Sometimes. We were devastated not to be able to present it in 2020, but are doubly excited now to finally be able to get it to the stage in 2021.
It's about the disconnect between the politics of older feminists and younger feminists. It's about political activism in the age of the internet, and it all hovers around this issue of sexual consent amongst teenagers. But it's also very funny and has fantastic characters and complex humanity and some really exciting theatricality. There's an epic battle between avatars and some a cappella. I am so lucky that I get to work with Emily Havea and Heather Mitchell. I think they are some of the best actresses we have in Australia. I'm really excited to see two leading ladies from completely different generations own a stage together, but more than that, go head to head.
The next show in our season also features an intergenerational struggle, but this one is felt between continents in the space between Johannesburg, South Africa, and the Perth suburb of Paradise in Kirsty Morelia's Orange Thrower. This play is an utterly unique coming-of-age story. It's about Zadie, a young South African woman, and a very sticky act of vandalism that slowly and gradually causes her to become unstuck and really shifts her sense of who she is.
Orange Thrower is my debut play. It is a coming-of-age story that explores South African womanhood in drab suburban Australia. Basically, we have two sisters who live in this house, and they discover that someone is vandalising their house at night. Everything isn't as it seems in this suburb that they live in called Paradise, and they go on a hunt to find out who the Orange Thrower is. It's a juicy drama. It's big. It is filled with lols. It has an air of mystery, lots of boppy tunes, maybe, and a lot of heart. I really like to celebrate mixed race identity, or at least coloured South African mixed race identity in this play, because there are, like, you know, texts written in the 1920s about sad mixed race women, And this has a bit of that, but I also wanted to flip the mold a little bit and kind of find something new in that narrative.
It is gut-bustingly funny, it is completely heartbreaking, and I think it features some of the most brilliant, chaotic characters and dialogue that I've seen committed to the page for quite some time. And it is also astonishingly Kirsty's first play, which she developed over 2020 as part of Griffin Studio. And for our final show, we go north, as in like really far north, like as in Singapore, for Merlin Tong's Golden Blood. Golden Blood is a really incredible true story. So incredible, in fact, that it is not really true at all. It's set in a place that playwright Merlin Tong knows really well, a house where a young orphaned girl and her not that much older brother are forced to make a very strange family of two. A family bond which is then tested through years of extreme poverty, years of extreme wealth, and also some supernatural forces.
When their parents pass away, a Singaporean teenage girl and her estranged brother have to start a new life together. The thing is, her brother is a gangster who is obsessed with wealth and she just wants a normal life. My father actually passed away when I was 6 and my mother when I was 14. So I remember when she passed away, it was just me and my brother left in my house. And it was quite awkward because we didn't necessarily know each other very well at that point. And as I grew older and reflected on that, it was almost like a really strange first date. So I wanted to use that bizarre experience of that moment and expand that into the starting point of a play. Well, in my culture, I'm Singaporean Chinese. Ghosts are just a real thing. They're just part of everyday life. So being a child and not having my parents around, I thought about ghosts as simultaneously comforting and also quite frightening. And I wanted to explore ghosts as a metaphor for what we need, what haunts us, and also what we long for.
It's a play of incredible imagination. It's funny and it's tender and it's spiritually profound. And I really can't think of a better way to finish off our 2021 main season. But of course, that's just our main season, and we have a lot more than that prepared for you. Beginning with our special events, 2 shows that are both extraordinary but could not be more different. First up is another show that got a pretty shaky start in 2020, but we are delighted to finally be bringing it to the stage in 2021. Deborah Oswald's Is There Something Wrong with That Lady? Deb's plays Mr. Bailey's Minder and The Peach Season are, I'd say, 2 of the most beloved ever to have graced our stage. And that love was really felt when Is There Something Wrong with That Lady? An Evening with Deb sold out before it even opened. This show is a beautiful, big-hearted love letter to theatre created by 2 of our country's greatest makers of it, playwright Deb Oswald and director Lee Lewis.
Is There Something Wrong with That Lady? Is funny and excruciating tales from my life as a junior hypochondriac, a desperate virgin, and a dogged writer of TV and theatre in a country like Australia. A couple of years ago, the brilliant folk who run Story Club at Giant Dwarf invited me to tell a story to a live audience. And I mean, I was vomiting nervous at first, but I discovered that it was so satisfying to have that direct connection with an audience, the immediate unfiltered transaction of live storytelling. It was like rocket fuel to me. So I wrote this show. With this show, audiences can expect stories from my childhood, which may or may not explain why I became a writer in the first place and why I haven't had a real job for 40 years.
Earlier this year, in the dark, housebound days of March, we put on something called a Griffin Lock-In, where we asked a bunch of extraordinary artists to create new works to be performed over the internet as live streaming pieces of theatre. This initiative was called Griffin Lock-In, and one of its breakout hits was a work by Xanthi Dobby and Harriet Gillies called Pleasuredome. This work is a kaleidoscopic, mind-bending trip, like literal trip, acid trip, into the mess and glory and chaos and utopia of the internet.
Pleasuredome is an interactive desktop documentary wrapped in a mutual masturbation session.
Pleasuredome starts as a lecture about hypertext and Ted Nelson and ends as a large-scale digital orgy of vibration and pleasure.
I don't think it would be wise to go into this show with any expectation or presumption regarding linearity or structure, and instead consider it a kind of holistic experience to let information wash over you and fall into a void, ideally while you touch yourself in the comfort of your own home.
In 2021, we are absolutely thrilled to be bringing back Susie Miller's Prima Facie, directed by Lee Lewis, for a strictly limited season. Many of you will have seen Prima Facie in its original incarnation here at the stables, but many of you wouldn't have because it was about as sold out can be. But I'm absolutely thrilled that Sheridan Harbridge's remarkable, towering performance will be riding again in the Reginald Theatre at the Seymour Centre. I'm going to hand you over now to Tessa Leong, our Associate Artistic Director at Griffin Theatre Company, who will take you through the 2 final shows of our season.
Hi, I'm Tessa Leong, the new Associate Artistic Director here at Griffin, thanks to Griffin Women. In 2021, we start something new, Griffin Lookout. It's a program where Griffin champions the work of exceptional theatre makers of the next generation. One of the works that will be part of this program is Jarly by Oliver Twist. It was part of our 2020 season and it's gone back into development and will re-emerge with a new title in 2021. Jarly is a deeply personal and funny work that takes us from a refugee camp in Malawi via the suburbs of Ipswich to the comedy clubs of Sydney.
The show, when I first started writing it about 3 years ago, I thought it was about my unique lived experience as a refugee. It quickly changed into a show about adapting to a new environment. The line that I like to tell people that the show really encapsulates is, when the music changes, so does dance. That's an African proverb that used to give an impression of what growing through life can be. And to me is what the show is about. What I'm trying to communicate, convey, really, is the experience that and how I felt, and trying to make them see that these feelings, these experiences are universal. That even though I was on the other side of the world, they could put themselves in my own shoes and walk a little, or even run.
Oliver is a gem of a storyteller. He's someone who can take you from intimate, deep personal moments to rich, warm humour. His story will certainly create waves with all of the audience who come along to join him for it. UFO is our second Lookout show for 2021. Set on a golf course, this work plays out in 1:8 scale miniature with live video feed and wonderful performances. Regroup collective Solomon Thomas and Kirby Medway explore the deep voids of beyond and also interrogate the voids that exist in the bureaucracies of the everyday. It will be like no other experience you've ever had in the stables.
It's set on a 1/8 scale miniature set with 3D 1/8 scale figurines of the actors. And so they move around their figurines and kind of, it's like a radio play on stage, so that you hear the voices, you see the figurines, and we all frame it through the lens of a camera with projection up on the screen. It's a team play. It's a big choreographed, like you could nearly call it a dance piece in the amount of choreography that the actors have to do, delivering their text and, you know, filming and moving the puppets and everything like that. There is no, there's been no heroes in any of this, and that's what I was kind of interested in, is how Hollywood and blockbuster movies often portray sci-fi films with like these heroes or these people that can win or come out against the odds, and actually in real life that just doesn't happen. There are no heroes. We're all pretty pathetic, and the bureaucracy we are stuck in is even worse. The show looks at humans and how humans deal with the unknown and how humans deal with time and space when they're put in precarious situations.
When it comes to artists in 2021, we're expanding our programs to bring some of Sydney's best into the fold. The 2021 Griffin Studio will entail 5 artists and 4 actors. The 5 artists will be developing their own projects within Griffin, and they'll also be taking workshops and sitting on our programming team. The 4 actors as part of the Griffin Studio Actors Ensemble will be the ones to read these works in progress and bring an actor's insight to those works around the table. We realise there are many who are eager to understand how we bring brand new Australian works to our stage. So in 2021, we launch a new initiative, the Artist Membership Program, with monthly workshops and insights into processes of our Griffin team. We can't wait to meet you backstage.
So there you have it, our 2021 season. It is a season of hidden stories all slowly coming to light, from gay beats at the edges of nice dog parks, to racial violence pushing in at the edges of the friendly suburbs, to blood and trauma and deep time running in the soil underneath the picturesque image of the Victorian Alpines. And from all the chaos and misinformation and mess of the internet, a kind of utopia or hope of a new and better world springing forth. This is where in a normal year, I would say the word subscribe about 500 times, but 2020 was a weird year and 2021 could be just as weird. So for those of you who don't want to subscribe, single tickets are your friends. But if you're one of our subscriber family and you still want to subscribe in 2021, firstly, thank you. And secondly, we want to be able to offer you a bit more security in 2021 through a new subscription option called Delay Pay. Delay Pay means you can subscribe upfront as per usual, but it also means that we won't capture any of those funds or actually process the transaction until 2 weeks before the show is set to open. This means that you can enjoy all the normal subscriber perks like discounted tickets, cheap drinks, free exchanges, while knowing that if the unforeseen happens and the show is cancelled, you will still be protected. So that's it. We hope you're as excited about this season as we are, and we hope that you'll join us in 2021 by climbing the stairs at the SBW Stables Theatre, by logging onto the internet, or by wandering down the road to a certain infamous gay sex spot. Wherever it may be, we're really looking forward to seeing you again and welcoming you back to Griffin Theatre Company.